Good afternoon, everybody. You're hanging out with Joe Leonardo and Alexander Turbin. This is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. I'm over here on the West Coast. My buddy Alex, he's over there on the East Coast. And we're covering all the comics in between. And today we're looking at two prolific creators. Guys that have very similar styles and, have probably pretty similar career trajectories as well. We're looking at Wally Wood and Al Williamson.
Yep. I've got some Daredevil with Wally Wood, but I was thinking as I was going through this stuff that you know to be a real collector in older comics, Golden Age, Silver Age stuff, you really have to like. There's a pretty steep entry point as far as monetarily. Like, I don't think either of us, unless you got a stash of gold somewhere that I don't know about, could really get into that. And it kind of sucks.
No, you're totally right. Because, see, I grew up, that's the era that I kind of grew up in, right? So I grew up collecting comics in say from the late 70s on, and then I
Yeah.
stopped somewhere around the early 80s. I stopped somewhere around 82 or 83 and then picked it up again later in the 90s for a little while. But all the stuff I originally collected was all, it was all Marvel and DC 70s stuff, you know what I mean? So I had, just a lot like Raw on the Space Knight and, you know what I mean? Warlord over at DC was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Just all that kind, Adam Warlock. I was huge on, anytime I could get Adam Warlock, because he never had a regular book. Adam Warlock would just pop up for a small run, you know what I mean, and then disappear. So anytime Adam Warlock popped up in a story, I was just like on that, But now, when I got rid of all that stuff, it just went. And it's like recently when I went to that convention and I was talking to oh my God, it's not popping into my name. But the point of is I was there and there was a lot of vendors, tons of vendors, and they're
Yeah.
all selling, their stuff for good prices. And everything from that era is like $40 and up, you know what I mean? It just like it
Yeah.
starts
Yeah.
at the $40-$60 range, you know what I mean? And those are for like nothing issues, and then they just go up and up and up and up and
Yeah.
up from there,
Yeah. 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 What's your Grail comic that you would, if you could get it, you would get it?
I don't know that I really have one because, in all honesty, Alex, like in all honesty, I've never once collected a comic book for its value. You know what I mean? Like I just
Right.
never did. And like as you can see at my, this is my original copy that I bought, at the 7-Eleven. I never, was about trying to keep them in some sort of perfect condition for a museum. You know what I mean?
Right.
These were all
Right.
bought because I love to look at them like toys. You know what I mean? I wanted to like look at the art over and over and over again. I read them again and again and again, and that's where my head is at, has always been at. Like even in the time when everybody was like, like when the collectors ruined comics in the 90s and everybody was out
Yeah.
buying 10
Yeah.
copies of everything. I never once did
Yeah.
that in my entire life, dude. I never
No.
once
No.
ever did that. Like I just
No. No.
have no
I didn't
interest in
either.
it. Like, 10 copies or 3 copies or 2 copies, whatever, man. I never did that. Like one copy is all I need. You know what I mean? I'm going to beat the
Right.
crap out of it. I'm going to read it till the pages fall off. And then I'll stick the loose pages and the loose cover in a bag with the book. You know what I mean? And when
Right.
I
Right. But you don't
thumb through
you
my
don't have
books,
any you don't have any older stuff like the Frazetta comics or
no,
old
no.
ECs or
And I
anything like
just don't
that.
have any aspiration. Like there's nothing that if you were asking me, I would be like Superman #1. I would love to have Action Comics
Right.
#1.
Obviously.
You know what I mean? You know, freaking. Like I wouldn't even care. Like if I had a bunch of money, I wouldn't be running out and getting FF1 and Spider-Man 1 and all that kind of stuff. I have no interest in it really. You know what I mean? Like if
What
anything,
what's
what would interest me is like I would love to see like okay, like say like if I wasn't doing comics with you, like the thing I would be doing is like recreating things. You know what I mean? Like say like
Yeah.
I like to like recreate classic 70s covers, but with a 90s art aesthetic. You've seen me do that a
Yeah.
couple times, like
Yeah. Yeah.
that Ghost Rider and that Werewolf by Night, and that's like a passion of mine, dude. Like, because I love the aesthetic of 70s covers, with the talking blurs
Yeah.
and you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I love
Yeah.
that, dude.
Yeah.
But
So
I
what's
always want to see it redone. Okay. But another thing
yeah.
I love is like when people recreate like old art or whatever, like some guy who goes in with like a projector or whatever and then just like outlines the art perfectly so that he has like a perfect recreated version of the art on the board. Like I would be
Yeah.
more interested in collecting that from artists than I would be collecting the original comics. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
know it's a
what do
weird
you think the
thing.
most
Yeah.
what do you think the most money you've spent on a comic book has been?
I've never really spent that much, $30, $60, you know what I mean? Like maybe on a something like, like maybe compendium or something like that, maybe, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I don't even know if I've ever spent that, like
Yeah.
it wasn't that stuff wasn't that expensive when, back in the day or whatever. And it just, I've never been a guy like who collected something because of its value. Now every once in a while I would stumble across something like my wife was into she was into zombie books, so we happened to get Walking Dead #1 and #2 back in the day,
Oh wow. Yeah.
But she took them and sold them. You know what I mean? She took them
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, like she had some issues going on, but but I mean, like, things like that are like, GI Joe #1, ended up being worth quite a bit. I had that. Teen Titans #1 ended up being worth
Yeah.
quite a bit. I'd had that. I had the original Secret Wars cover where Spider-Man changes into the black outfit. That's worth some money now. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had
Yeah, that's
Conan
what
#1.
the most valuable comics that I think I've ever had are ones that I got because I liked them instead of, I thought that they
Yeah,
were going to be worth any kind of
I
money.
never, but yeah, I never got something because I thought it was gonna be worth money. Like that was never an issue with me.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're looking at Wally Wood and Al Williamson, and they're going to be in the poll this week. We are skipping over Jack Kirby, I think, and we got to find an appropriate competitor for the King, and
Yeah,
I think it's probably impossible. I mean,
I
if
was
we
just gonna
put
say
up,
Jack Kirby's. It's like trying to find someone to defeat Galactus. You know what I mean? Like Jack Kirby is
yeah,
the
yeah,
Galactus of comic book creators. You know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
he really is.
He
Do you think if we
overshadows
put
everything by like a mountain.
Yeah, you think if we put him up against Jim Lee, you think Kirby would win or Jim Lee?
I don't. I think it would matter. You know what I mean? Like Jim Lee could win. Or Kirby could win. Like it just. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
you would have to have a poll of 1 million people to get a real view of how the world
Oh
views
yeah,
it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And I think
definitely.
that I just think that incomprehensibly Jim Lee's great, but there you can't have Jim Lee without Jack Kirby.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You
true.
know what I
That's
mean?
true.
Without
I'm
Jack
just kind of
Kirby, yeah,
it'll
Jim
be a
Lee
fun
can't
poll when it
exist.
happens.
You know what I mean? Like so,
It,
it's
it
like they're incomprehensibly from two different ages and two different eras, so you can't
they
hardly
are.
compare
They
them,
are.
even though they're versions of the same kind of artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the game
Yeah.
changers. They're the guys that came in with such a strong vision that everybody else changed their art to match their vision. You know what I mean? And that just doesn't
Yeah.
happen very often. So in that aspect, they both are very similar. But other than that kind of thing, you know what I mean? They're entirely different dudes
As
from two
as
totally
far
different
as
eras.
art wise, you can compare them, but like creator wise, I don't think you can even come close to comparing
Yeah,
Kirby to
and even
whoever
art-wise,
Jim
you
Lee
know what
has
I mean? Like,
created.
because Jim Lee's stuff is so refined and so futuristic, and Kirby's stuff is that same thing, but from the '60s era. You know what I mean? So
Right,
you're comparing,
right.
you
But
know,
also comparing the characters that they've created, like how could you possibly compare Captain? He did
yeah,
create Captain America.
yeah,
Captain
yeah,
America.
yeah,
How could you compare Captain America to any of the Wildcats
right, yeah, it's
or
ridiculous.
Deathblow
What you're doing at
or
that
whoever
point,
else
dude,
he created?
is you're comparing a like '63 Alpha or like a '62 Alfa Romeo, you know what I mean? Or like a '63 Ferrari, to a 1998 Lamborghini or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like one is ostentatious and like, over the top and ridiculous, and one is a succinct,
Yeah,
formulated machine from a time when they didn't have all that construct and didn't have all that extra flash. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
you know, it's like it's almost incomparable because they are both supercars. They both cost you, $800,000 to own them. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
one
yeah,
is a classic from the from the past, and one is a futuristic vision of the future. So
yeah, yeah. One last thing about collecting though, it really is too bad because there are a lot of things that I would like to get. Like I would love to have a bunch of those old EC comics or stuff like that, but just getting them is just so expensive. You're talking hundreds of dollars per issue
Well,
easily. Uh,
I go ahead. I'm sorry.
and having a reprint just isn't the same. It's just not the same.
Well, I wish like I wish we were closer together, right? Because like I have a box of Golden Age stuff. I have two boxes of it. You know what I mean? I have
Right,
boxes
right.
of House of Mystery, House of Secrets, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Freaking Tomb of Dracula. I have tons of like the 70s romance comics, like Belated Love and Brides of Tomorrow, and you know what I mean?
That that
I
is
have
that is
tons.
probably the one genre I'm totally not interested in.
Dude, you'd be surprised at how much great art is in those things. You'd really be
Yeah, yeah,
surprised. And if you're
yeah.
looking,
Like I'm saying, for Zeta and Kirby both did romance stuff.
how much time do you like ever have someone kissing in your books? You know what I mean? Like, do you ever have someone
Yeah,
kissing in your books? Man, the romance
yeah,
books are a
yeah.
really
It's
strong
hard.
draw. You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's hard.
hang on for 1 second. Like, I don't know how well this is going to show up here, but like say this Batman and Catwoman I did right here. Can you see
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
That's from a romance book. You know what I mean? That was me.
yeah.
I ripped this off from like a cover of like Doomed Romance or whatever, and just switched them out for Catwoman and Batman. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just like because
yeah,
like Jim Lee had done that drawing where they're about to kiss. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
they're close, and their faces are right up there, and they're about to kiss. And I just thought, well, I would draw the actual kiss.
yeah. Kissing is one of my top three hardest things to draw
It's
because
super.
you're losing half a face.
Yeah, it's super hard. It's super hard. I agree 100%. But that's just kind of thing. And I mean, I have a lot of that. I have like tons of like Ghost Rider and old Morbiuses and
Yeah,
Son of Satan, which was one of my favorites too. Because Son of Satan is so audacious. Like, who the heck makes a comic book about the son of the devil?
I know
Marvel.
that's weird. Marvel
Yeah,
did
Marvel in
some
the
weird
70s,
stuff.
man. They had this weird satanic affinity. It was called the Sons of Midnight, I think it was. And
Yeah.
it was Man Thing, Ghost Rider,
Yep.
Morbius, and Son of Satan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like,
I think there's going to be like either a movie or a Disney show of
yeah,
that.
they were like the evil dudes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But you want
Right.
to go ahead and get into this, man? Let's go ahead and give these guys their due here, and just take a few moments to like revel over the amazing art of these two dudes who just,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah.
man.
You go first.
I personally like say like before I discovered Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri and those guys because say Sal Buscema, you know what I mean, or John Buscema, um I didn't really tie into those guys because, like, say he's a great artist, but he didn't do that many superheroes. I'm mostly a superhero guy, right? So all the
Yeah.
Conan stuff always looked great, but to me, the Conan stuff guys were always riffing on Frazetta. So I never really
Yeah.
looked at them as like innovator or whatever, you know what I mean, or as their forms being really fantastic. But
Yeah.
obviously they are. And, obviously as you get older and you become a better artist, you learn, you start to see, all the great stuff and everything or whatever. But, like when I was growing up and like looking at art, this was what I wanted to be. Like, this is what I wanted to look like right here. Like, this is the guy I modeled myself after. Everything. I used to redraw these all the time as a kid, anytime I could find something.
Was it because of the art or was it because it was Star Wars?
No, it's because of the art, and I'll tell you, dude. Like it goes all the way back because what it really revolves back to is my insane love of Flash Gordon and the Flash Gordon guy who's not popping into my head right now. But Al Williams modeled all his art. Like Al Williams was, worked under him. Was the guy who did like backgrounds in Flash Gordon when he's like 19 years old. And
Yeah.
he just wanted to do Flash Gordon, And I think I've talked about this with you before. It was like there was this great sort of like naturalness, like a line in a poem that took place where it was like, Al Williamson wanted to draw Flash Gordon. That's all he ever wanted. He modeled his exact art style after the dude that did Flash Gordon. And then
Yeah.
Flash Gordon is the inspiration for Star Wars. You know, before he makes Star Wars, George Lucas tries to get Flash Gordon and can't.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he creates his own Flash Gordon, which we know as Star Wars, you know. And then, you know, through the magic of popularity and whimsy, he gets the guy who trained under the dude of Flash Gordon to draw Star Wars as a Flash Gordon-esque comic strip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like this perfect circle, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like beautiful poetry.
Pretty,
When it's right, you know what I mean?
yeah, pretty much, pretty much. I never got those when I was younger, and I don't like Star Wars comic books. Is
That's
that
crazy.
weird?
I loved the Star Wars comic for
Like,
Marvel. You know, when it came out, like I liked it all. Yeah.
I love Star Wars. That's like probably my second favorite franchise after X-Men. But I don't know, just something about Star Wars comics has never
Were,
made me. And I've read a lot of them. I've read of all of the Marvel and all of
for
Dark
sure.
Horse or
Were
whatever.
you
And
old enough
it's just
to Did you see
I
the
think I
film in the theater when it came out?
yeah. I saw all
Okay.
three of
Right
them
on.
in the theater. I
Yeah.
waited in line, all
Right.
wrapped around the movie
Right
theater to
on.
see them.
That's the way you do it.
I
Yeah.
think my biggest problem is that it somewhere in the back of my mind, I know it's not canon. So I'm like, this isn't really Star Wars to me.
For
You
sure.
know what
I
I'm
mean, I can
saying?
totally vibe on that. Yeah, I mean, they were a little silly too, and they didn't have very good artists working on it either. You know, it's not like I was like
Yeah.
mind-numbingly collecting all those. Williamson wasn't doing those books, but you know, what about this? What about the movie adaptation? Like you told me, you didn't even like movie adaptations when you were a kid growing up.
I don't like movie adaptions.
I loved
Just
them.
not,
You know what I
I don't
mean?
know why I can't. I think I think I don't know why. I don't know why.
Dude, like I've said to you, like I have a, you know, like I want to do one, like you know what I mean, like I want to
Yeah.
do a movie
Yeah.
adaptation, you know what I mean, like I want to do a movie
Yeah.
adaptation of like Legend or like some movie, you know, that's just like beautiful that
Crawl.
people don't appreciate. Yeah, Crawl, something, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I want to do
Yeah.
like that's one of my goals is to do
Yeah.
a indie underground film adaptation comic book, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
because I'm such a huge fan, and because just like Williamson here, I work with reference a lot. Like I'm a
Yeah.
reference guy, you know what I mean? And you can see all these drawings are this is all done from reference, you know, all this is done from
Yeah.
reference. You ain't getting an R2 or a C3PO that looks like this, you know what I mean, without reference, you know, freaking that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. There's so many hard angles on like some of this stuff, you know what I mean? Like drawing Darth Vader's helmet and, you know, Boba Fett's helmet and stuff. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough,
Yeah.
dude. Like, you know, but man, I'm such a huge fan of these things, dude. Like, I just absolutely loved movie adaptation comic books when I was a kid growing up, and I bought all of them I could get my hands on at the time. I had,
Yeah.
like, the Dark Crystal had an adaptation. Labyrinth had an adaptation. I had Indiana Jones, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was one of the worst
Yeah.
adaptions ever, too. Like, the adaptation of Raiders of the Lost Ark was so bad, but I still bought it. Like, it
Uh,
was terrible.
so you like adaptations of the movies that you like? Do you like continuing stories that aren't, adaptations? Like, did you get all
No,
of the Star Wars
not,
comics?
dude, like everything for me, dude, I've said this before, it all boils down to the art. 99% of the
Yeah.
time, I don't even care about the story. You know what I mean? I just want, like, I'm addicted to the line art, dude. I have been since I was
Yeah.
a very young child. I don't know where it comes from or how it acts like a drug in my brain. You know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
really is. It's almost like a drug in my brain. Like, I almost enjoy it as much as, like, you know, when I was a kid and I drank a lot or something, you know, like I just like there's just like a effervescence that like happens in my soul. You know what I mean? When I
Yeah.
see like that level of like recreation and detail. And that's something that transfers, like say like my love of toys or whatever when I was a little kid, you know, because I love anything that's miniaturized and is beautifully articulately recreated. It's just fascinating to me for some reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you could turn the little head and make the little arms move, and they're beautifully sculpted and they beautifully represent the thing that they're created to, like, you know, represent or whatever, you know? Like there's just some sort of like intangible magic to me that happens like
Yeah.
during that. But I mean, just like, dude, like look at some of these scenes. I mean, we're all so familiar with these scenes from the film, you know. But just he's so fantastic at capturing this stuff, you know, like I mean, there's just like this is a tiny panel, but there's just so much information being conveyed in these things. You know, the likenesses are beautiful. He has to pack so much information into every single thing. You know, and I mean, I'm just such a huge fan, dude. I am such a huge fan. I look at this stuff and I still to this day, it, you know, there's an element of it just blows my mind, man. It's so rad.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I just like, I don't know, like, you know, this shot of the, you know, the Rancor or whatever. And then like, you know,
Yeah.
and let's not even sleep on this, like, you know, who painted this, do you think?
Isn't that um what's his name? It doesn't have a
It does. I just don't want to tell you
signature.
yet.
I
It's
don't
a,
know who is it.
it's Bill Sienkiewicz.
Oh, it's Akevich. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, look at the, you know, the likeness on the face right there
Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, like
Definitely. Definitely.
all this like
Although it
cool.
doesn't have a lot of the Sienkiewicz type things.
Yeah, no, he's really tuning it all out to like do almost like
Yeah.
he's doing like a Drew Struzan almost, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. 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 One thing about Al Williamson and Wally Wood is they're not highly stylistic. That's probably
no,
why I'm not a huge fan of both of the either of these because they're
um,
just not I gravitate towards highly stylistic artists.
yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that in your work too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I
Yeah.
am much more like always gravitating towards trying to find a photorealistic vibe or whatever. And I
Right.
guess that's
Right.
probably why I've always vibed on these guys so much or whatever. But
Yeah.
just look at that end piece right there, man. Like
Yeah,
all in
that's
blue
awesome.
like that against the blue like that. Isn't that terrific? But this is a collection of the comic strip that he had worked on. And this is right around the time when James Bond is a real popular thing. You know, it's like the late 70s, you know, or like mid 70s or whatever. So, you know, you come off the run of the big James Bond films, and Roger Moore is having his super popular run, and
Yeah.
Al Williamson. And this was actually created by Alex Raymond. There it is. That's the Flash Gordon guy. His name wasn't
Right.
popping in my
Right.
head. But just
Right.
like with Flash Gordon, just like, you know, this is an Alex Raymond thing. And, you know, Al Williamson was Alex Raymond's sort of protege or whatever, you know. And he just, you know, I mean, there it is. There's look at that great Flash Gordon right there, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so beautiful. And this was just a collection of his, I want to say it's almost 10 years of him doing a Secret Agent X or Secret Agent Corrigan, I guess is what it was called. But I use this thing a lot for random faces, like when I need like character faces that need to look
Yeah.
not like a supermodel or whatever, which is kind of all
Yeah.
I can really do, you know what I mean? So when I want like a gruff, you know, like guy like this dude down here or something like that, a lot of times I'll reference these things, you know. Also cool stuff like this, like he'll do these really cool like spaceman looking pilot,
Yeah.
you know, looking, you
Yeah.
know what I mean, tech armor stuff, you know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
dope, dude.
That looks very Star Wars-ish.
Doesn't it? So
Yeah.
awesome, man. It's terrific. And then the other thing I use these for is for like these like amazing like car scenes that he'll do,
Yeah.
and these
Yeah.
his establishing shots. You know what I mean? Like he'll do these like really cool little like really brilliant like little establishing shots. You know, they're just like don't take
Yeah.
up much. So you know what I mean? You can look at it and just be like, oh, it's like it's this, and it's this, and that creates the whole idea. So you don't have to necessarily go in and just be like, I'm going to rip this panel off. But he gives you enough information to where you could just translate the information that or his like layout to a slightly different structure or whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, honestly, you probably could crib this stuff right off the page and no one's going to know it because no one's got, you know, no one went and collected, you know, years of Secret Agent
Right.
X and got it sitting
Yeah.
in a photograph book somewhere or something, you know what I mean? And like say
Yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
this beautiful, and I mean this thing is big, dude. You know what I mean? It's 10 years of stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know, every single day.
he doesn't have to mess with panel variation, and it's all square panels.
Yeah, but he does get a lot of wonderful stuff. Like say like right here, you'll see like how like say this strip is just 2 big panels, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that was that
Yeah.
week strip. And it's
Right.
gorgeous. Look at that beautiful, Mercedes right there. We know that's like a 1978, you know what I mean? I can look right at that model and almost know exactly what it is, like
Yeah. Yeah. It
beautiful
makes me
stuff.
want. It makes me want to. It makes me want to ink with a brush, just a brush, because all that stuff is brushwork.
Well, these faces, I don't know, dude. I think that's nib myself,
No.
you know what I
Nope.
mean?
No. That's all brush.
Think so?
Well, I know so. I know so. All
Oh,
those
that's
all those
right.
guys back in the day did almost everything exclusively with brush.
Yeah, but see,
That
like,
was
look at
one
here,
of
dude.
the,
Like,
that was one of the things that
like
Gubert.
this stuff ain't brush, dude. I don't think, or like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all that cross
Brush.
hatching in the background.
Yeah.
That's got to be a
Brush.
pin of some kind. There's
Nope.
no way.
Nope. It's brush.
I'd
Brush.
have to see. I have to see that with my
I,
own
I
eyes,
would I
man.
would be I would be willing to stake my life on it. Yep, it's
Those
brush.
little, you know what I mean? Those little cross hatches
Yep,
behind the submarine right
yep,
there, are like
yep,
those, are like these right here. You know what I mean?
yep,
Like from that
yep,
silhouette of him. That'd
yep.
be wild.
All brush.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? I cannot imagine. I could, there's no way. I couldn't do that with a brush.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, it just takes a little bit of practice, and I know for a fact you would be able to.
Well, the thing about that stuff is like, if I could sit next to him and watch him do it, you know what I mean? Or if he had a YouTube
Yeah.
channel and he was like, doing it live in front of you, then you could get
Yep.
it, then you could
Yep.
figure it out or whatever. Cause that's what I call that the, oh, what is it? The freaking, what do they call it when everyone's working together in a room?
Osmosis.
Well,
Osmosis or
what do they
something.
call it at Marvel when everybody's working together, at the same
The
time, and you're
bullpen in
all
the bullpen.
the bullpen. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the bullpen effect, is what I call that. Because like when you're
Yeah.
working around 5 rad artists and everybody's got their own thing and they're all really good,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, how are you doing that? And he shows you like, oh, I'm doing that like
Yeah.
this, or and you're like, oh, and they come back like, oh, now I'm doing this like that, and then you're just like, okay, I'm gonna do my things like that now or whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then everybody shares and everybody gets better. Like that's kind of like we have a small version of that happens, like with our comic book groups, with everybody working together and everyone working on
Yep.
similar projects. We get this small effect like that where artists will like slowly be getting better just because they're working with other artists, watching what other artists are producing and trying to push themselves to get to the level of other artists around them or whatever. But if we were all in a room working together and everyone was just watching each other work, the level that you got better at would be so much
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like um Simonson, who was in the I was Sienkiewicz in that group. There's like a group of 8 or 9 of them that were Chaikin and Bernie Wrightson. I think maybe Bernie Wrightson was part of that group. There was like 6 or 7 of them that were all like into the same stuff, and they're just all amazingly different and yet also kind of similar too.
Yeah, and also like almost like similar levels of goodness between them. Like each
Yeah,
one of them is
yeah, yeah,
growing at a peak levels where their stuff is incredibly impressive. I mean, you could pour over this stuff for hours, dude. You know what I mean? And just
yeah,
like not stop finding just like the most brilliant things everywhere. You know what I mean? Like even
yeah,
if you're just like looking for like resources on how to light your figures and light faces randomly. You know what I mean?
yeah,
This book
yeah,
is an endless resource. Oh, you're
yeah,
like, oh, I'm doing like you're doing a jungle scene, just like we were like, and the people are doing with the Crom stuff, and you need maybe some cool background branches and how to do swampy stuff. You know what I mean? It's all
yeah,
here, dude. Spaceships, buildings, cars, submarines. You know what I mean, dude? Like,
yeah,
here's it literally even goes into like a Star Wars Flash Gordon feature at one point, with this Ming the Merciless looking dude, and then like in space with spaceships and stuff because Star Wars is so popular, and you know what I mean. This thing was $14.
Oh, that's a good price. That's an
Yeah,
awesome price.
sat on the the comic book shelf of my little comic book place for probably 5 years, and nobody buying it, no one interested. He wanted like $25 for it. I offered him 15, and he was like, "Yep."
That's cool. All right, let's look at Wally Wood. Because as we said, they're both very similar. We'll go to issue 6, wherever that is.
Yeah, like right off the back, you can just see. And I'm glad that you're looking at a black and white piece too over there, because like
Yeah,
that just
yeah,
gives you a it gives you a real clear, linear, version of their values or whatever. You know what I mean? But the only thing
yeah.
here is like the guy is being hindered here by the Marvel, like ideology or whatever. So you have to have so much whatever, things taking place in your story. You know what I mean? Like you have to have,
Is
fighting.
did
You got to have
did
all this
did
stuff.
Wallace ink all that stuff?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
It's all him.
yeah, because
Pencils, inks, all of it. Yeah.
because
He,
this is
he led his
illustrated by him. So he did the inks too. So
That's
yeah, I mean
awesome.
you're right. I mean the panels are smaller, so he's got a this. There's a lot of dialogue and stuff, so he's
Sure.
cramming that stuff in for
Yeah. He's
sure.
got to have all the
Good
mid
old
shots,
Stan Lee.
hmm
Which
And
is weird because if it's Marvel method where Stanley tells him what he wants in a story and then he draws it and then they cut out a bunch of stuff to put the lettering in and stuff. So that's kind of odd that there's so much lettering and yet I guess he just knew that that's how much lettering there was going to be.
I do. That stuff is brutal. You know what I mean? Like I'm going, like the Entropy Alliance #2 is an information dump for the story. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like you know what I mean? Like the first part, like the first story has got this. It's just like a cool little vignette that's giving you an idea, and then in the second one we're doing now, it's like now we're dumping. Now it's like a real story, and we have all these ideas, and I'm trying to put them all into the story as the story is going on, and like dude, the characters are talking a lot, and I am having
yeah,
to like, really, really crunch things down and like, like to try and get them to fit without completely destroying the art. You know what I mean? Like, and I
yeah,
mean, I have some
yeah.
panels where I drew the crap out of them, and I'm going to say, man, 60% of the panel is covered by dialogue or whatever, and just like,
Yeah,
ugh.
yeah. It's rough. It's rough. But look at this little detail that he has in this wax museum. That's just awesome.
I was going to say, I
But
think this is probably the Jim Shooter era too, right here, right?
no, this is
No?
Stanley. This is because this is Daredevil #6. Jim Shooter didn't come in
Oh,
till
okay.
late '70s, early '80s.
Okay. So Jim Shooter.
I
I
think
thought maybe
maybe mid '70s.
I was just thinking with all the mid shots that maybe Shooter was on board. You know what I mean? Because he was the king of making sure everybody, just did the
Yeah,
mid
yeah,
shots. You always have that middle shot where you show them as much of the figure as you can and as much of the area. And get as many of those
yeah.
panels on the page as you can. You know what I mean? To really illustrate the story. I mean, like recently I was looking at. And we should probably do this too. I guess you probably have this. Was Long Shot #1?
I don't. I did,
No.
but I don't.
Okay.
That's
I
definitely
was just
something I should get.
Yeah, I was just looking at it recently. I have it, and I was just
Yeah,
like, man, that thing is dense, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah.
shit, they're just like cramming the story. And I
It's
understand, like, the chick that wrote that, it was like her first thing she wrote, and then
and
she
essentially, yeah,
realized that she was doing too much, giving him too much, and that's why it was taking him so long, and why some of the pages have like 12 and 14 panels on them and stuff. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? It's
yeah, yeah.
crazy.
It's amazing to see even from how many issues is that? 6, I think, or is it
Yeah,
more than that? 12? No, it's
yeah,
not
I think
12.
so. That sounds right.
But it's amazing to see from issue 1 to the last issue how much better he gets. It's truly amazing.
Dude, and I mean, like,
But
it's all, like, okay, like, I was watching this thing, and you know how it has, like, if I'm, you don't have it, but if you look at the cover to it, and you could see it online or whatever, it's very unusual, right? It's like a color graded thing or whatever, where they actually color graded the art. So, like,
yeah,
the long shot is, colored normally, but then the background is all like pink and blue with this weird circle in the
yeah,
middle of it,
yeah, yeah,
and dude, I saw that cover recently, like it was supposed to be, and it doesn't even look like the same thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
dude, like the actual piece of art for that is so dense, and it's like there's so much on the page. It's like I want to say there's probably like 19 or 18 characters on that one shot.
yeah, yeah,
And it's like I see, it's like I can understand why they did what they did because they're trying to bring long shot out of it, and he's just like disappears in this like dark mass of figures in the actual black and white shot. But
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
look at the black and white
This is one
shot,
of yeah.
go ahead. I'm just saying it looks like it
This
took him hours. You know, it looked like it took him
yeah,
16
yeah,
hours or
definitely.
18 hours to draw it. But then when you
This
look
is
at what they did to the cover, you can't even see any of the art. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is one of the awesome things about Wally Wood and all those old timers like Al Williams is their action. Like they know to do the the startup of the action and then the follow through. Whereas
Dude, those guys are
so many newer artists, they just have like this action pose of the character, you know, doing what they're doing, and then the bad guy's laying down or something. They don't actually show the action, and these older guys, they actually knew how to do the action, which is
the
amazing.
thing that really like I love about the old guys, and this is something I'm going to be bringing in. Like I'm studying these things right now because I'm definitely going to be doing it in the third book, in the third issue that we're planning. You know, that hasn't even been started drawing yet, so don't anyone get excited. But
Yeah.
I'm, um, I'm fully studying the DeLuca effect. You know what I'm talking about?
No, what's that?
Okay, DeLuca is when they draw, like, when Kirby draws in one panel Captain America doing 5 things or whatever, where it shows him
Oh yeah,
grab a bar, flip in the
yeah,
air, then land,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
punch some guy or whatever, and it's all
yeah.
on one panel. Dude,
Yeah, yeah,
like that.
that's like Nightcrawler in the Danger Room doing that, or
Yes.
anybody in the
Yes.
Danger Room. They're always doing that kind of
Daredevil,
stuff.
like will do like the Frank Miller Daredevil, he'll do those sometimes, and like they'll be
Yeah,
like right before the fight scene starts, he'll swing into a room and kick some guy, and then like punch
yeah,
some other dude, and then the actual
yeah,
fight page will start, but it'll all be on one panel. You know what I mean? Like the
yeah, yeah.
DeLuca,
I do
and
that. I do that
yeah,
quite
dude,
often.
I never have done that, yet in a story, and it's like
Yeah,
I was like, because like we were talking about how like the next issue will be the issue that's mostly action again. It has a lot of action stuff taking place in it, because this issue doesn't have very much action in it. You know what I mean? It has a little bit at the very beginning, and then the whole like a quarter of it is just like introducing characters and ideas and like the interactions. What happened to Red Genesis's team? I go into that. They go back and they pick up the Phenom and are like, we don't want anything to get this guy because like some bad scientist picks this dead body up and starts freaking looking at its DNA. Who knows what we could end up with or whatever. You know what I mean? So like I cover all that stuff, and then we go into like the admiral and his whole thing with his planet, and freaking them dealing with the Bjorn and Krieg, which I still don't even know how that ends up yet because you haven't even drawn it yet. You know what I mean? Like, so
check out that panel. That's just awesome. It's one of both of these
yeah,
pages
that's
here.
amazing.
They it's almost like they have an anchor panel. It's
Yeah, yeah.
which I wish they did. I'm not a
That
huge
figure hanging
image
off the
guy.
bottom of the plane. That's so cool.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
Daredevil, just like down there hanging off the bottom, because like
yeah,
when I'm like the little kid in me is like, that's what I want to draw. I want to draw Daredevil hanging off the plane, and then
yeah,
but like
yeah.
the adult in you knows you have to draw that whole city to make that shot come
Yeah,
off. You know what I mean?
all of that in the background.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that whole
yeah.
plane in the
I'm not a
city.
huge image artist fan, but the anchor panel on a page, I'm a big fan of that.
I do that for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I said, my aesthetics lean towards lean towards the more modern version of whatever layouts are nowadays, more than what they used to be like, and I just embrace that, because that's just the modern thing. But I'm also trying to bring back the small, amount of detail in pages, that doesn't happen that much anymore. But I noticed that there's a fine line to be walked or whatever, because like the more you get into smaller panels, the more the image disappears.
yeah,
It can be
yeah,
hard to deep to like understand exactly what you're seeing in a panel or whatever, or exactly what's taking place, because by the time it's been shrunk down for production, it might be fairly small and difficult to make out or whatever. But
yeah,
it's just all in the like hope that your storytelling comes across, and storytelling
yeah,
is what it's all about, and it's like that it could go in so many different directions. You know what I mean? When you're doing story stuff, and it's like, like right now doing the book like we're doing, and it's like, man, dude, I have to say, it's a dredge to just like push through all this stuff because there's so much story stuff that's not that interesting to draw. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yep.
faces and people standing in rooms, and you know
Hey,
what I mean? Like,
that's what the Marvel and DC people want to see when you're applying to be a penciler for them. They want to see,
I know.
they know everybody can do a splash page of Spider-Man fighting, whoever the Thing or whatever. They know everybody can do that, but not everybody can show a group of people just, walking down the street or at a bar or something like that, because
Look at
that's the
this.
hardest thing.
Look at this cool little drawing of like Dr. Zhang like barfing after getting done with her speed tour.
Yeah, yeah. All
But
right,
yeah,
so
dude, super hard.
that's Wally Wood. That's Wally Wood.
And that's
So
Al
I'm going to put
Williamson,
up.
man.
Yep, and I'm going to put up the poll almost after this. You want to send us on our way?
Yeah. Well, like Alex is always saying, he and I are comic book creators. I'm the creator of Six Lords of Sound. Alex and I together are the creators of the Entropy Alliance. And Alexander Turbin is the creator of Random Access Comics. And we appreciate your guys stopping by and hanging out with us. If you watch the video to the very end, it's going to make a big difference to helping us push this out to the algorithm. Look at that spaceship. It's so cool. um, if you're a comic book lover like us, and you're going to like appreciate, hanging out and just looking at these amazing artists, discussing how their art moves us, why, the things that make them unique. Just like Alex was saying, like, can you imagine an artist, a modern artist, creating all of this with a brush? Nowadays, people cheat so much. We lose out on the love of creation. There's something that, is amiss, I feel like, when people don't, really divulge into the original idea of storytelling on page. It's great to be able to have, computer programs that'll help you draw, but man, for me, there's just nothing beats an artist that could just sit down and do it right on the page. I'm amazed by these guys. I hope you guys are too. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Once again, this is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. I'm Joe Leonardo. You can see me on my Instagram page, which is Awfully World on Instagram, AWFULLYWORLD. And this is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. Do you have anything you want to add before we head out of here, Alex?
Yeah, as you were saying, I produce a comic book every month called Random Access. I'm up to actually number 32. This is last month's, and this is a reprint from Volume 1. I'm on Volume 2 actually, and there's big changes coming up in Random Access with new artists, new style, new vision, more pages, all kinds of cool stuff. So there's lots of stuff to
More
be looking
color.
forward to. In color, often color. Next issue is not going to be
Yeah, but I
in
just
color.
noticed the color pages, the color accesses seem to be coming out more often than not. For the longest time, it's been
Yeah.
black and white. But you notice you're just like, your color here, color there, and that's what we want. That's what people love. Just keep
Well,
pushing it out.
I
Keep
did
getting better.
color. I did color for the longest time, and I really tried, but coloring takes so long, and sometimes I just have to go black and white, or print something that I've previously drawn or whatever to catch up. So it's
Yeah,
really, if
I
something's in black
100%.
and white,
Yeah, because like
yeah,
right
if
now, the Entropy Alliance, like I want to do it in color, just like I did Six Lords of Sound. But if we waited for it to be in color, it'd be a year and a half before
it's
the book comes
it
out.
just it just takes so long. Takes
So the idea
so
I'm thinking
long.
is like we'll get the entire book done in black and white, and once that's done, I'll go back and color it, and then we can release into a color version.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it gives me time to do other stuff. Like this is Morgrim, the Savage Cyclops, and part 2 is going to be coming shortly. I'm going to say that. And
Look how great that
yeah, you
comic
can
looks,
find
dude.
these. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can go to my website, alexanderturbin.com, or you can go to my Instagram at alexturbin04401 at Instagram, or alexturbin04401 at Yahoo, which is my email.
Dude, I just
So
want
you
you
can
to
give
stop and
multiple places.
for just 1 second, man. I want you to just realize, like, how much better like your art has gotten. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at these pages. And compared to like the Morgram pages, you know what I mean? Like your art has improved quite a bit, dude. Like you're just, you're getting better fast.
Well, it's a different thing. Like the Morgram was watercolor, and that's obviously much different look than the Cyrene. Cyrene is all digitally colored, and I'm learning both of them. And it's taken me quite a while to learn a lot of the ins and outs of
I'm not even talking about
digital
the color,
coloring.
dude. I'm just talking about the
Yeah,
faces and the figures and stuff, man. You wash the
yeah.
color off the board. Just like say, look at that face on the left, right there at the top. Go back, top panel, left on the left panel, right, and then go back one page on the Cyrene. Go back
This
and pick
one.
that one. Now look at that face on the left, right there. The
Yeah,
redhead or
yeah,
whatever, and compare it to the one in Morgram. You know what I mean, dude? It's like
yeah.
you've gotten quite. That's the same exact kind of pose. You know what I mean?
Well,
But one's gotten way better.
well, it's not that long. It's not that long ago, though.
Well, then you're getting
It's a
better fast.
it's a hit or miss. It's a hit or miss kind of thing.
Well, maybe you had more inspiration when you were doing, the Morgram because it's your
Maybe
first time
I think
drawing
that
it.
might be
Because like
that might be
I do that too. Because once you've been drawing something for a while, you get hammered into it. You stop finding the joy in the figure or whatever. Because you're drawing it so much or
right,
whatever.
right. And
All
also
right.
just the pose. The poses are have a lot to do with the quality. I think if you're doing an easier pose or just I don't know. Sometimes I think just sometimes I do better than others. Like you're right. I think these are way weaker. I think these headshots are a lot better.
They are, but see, like,
Obviously.
say, like, okay, like in that great shot of Cyrene where she's swinging from the chain, you don't do any
Yep.
background though. Like, if that was a Morgan shot, I can't help but feel like you would have detailed up the background. You know what I mean? You're just getting
No,
better with
because
things like that.
no, because this is supposed to be no background. They're like in a black in like in an abyss.
Oh, okay. So they're in some sort of phantom zone kind of thing or something.
Yeah, yeah, and they're just hanging by the chains, and
Ah,
that's how
okay. Well, that makes sense.
it's like a trap kind of thing. So
Well, see,
yeah, it's
that makes sense
background.
to me because, like, lately, all of your background stuff and everything has been getting better, and it's just like to see something where
Yeah,
you just have a colored variant, as the background or whatever. It just seems like a older idea in your storytelling ability or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, because I just see it getting more clearer and clearer, and
no,
things
no,
getting more accurate and stuff like that.
it's usually if it's part of the story, like the I can't remember what it's called, but this is like a realm that they get trapped in, and it's like a test, and they're just trapped on those chains and just dangling. But sometimes, I mean, like I've got these bricks here everywhere, but then I chose this panel to not have any bricks in the background because I figured that it's all of these figures together. I didn't want to clutter anything up in the background with bricks, and also there's bricks everywhere else, so
I was
your
gonna
mind
say,
automatically realizes that there's going to be bricks there.
yeah, and the thing about bricks is here's the tricky thing about bricks is like the more you put them on the page, the more amateur your page can start to look.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
bricks is
it's
one of
true.
those things that everybody falls back on in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
bricks are in alley, bricks are everywhere, bricks are on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just one of those things that people learn to draw early. But it's like it's something people can abuse a lot, and then it'll tend to make the book look shoddy or whatever. Because no matter where they're at in the city, there's just a brick wall background or whatever, kind of
Yeah.
thing will take
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But
all
this
right,
was
you guys, we
also,
meandered on.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. We got to go.
Yeah, okay. We meandered on long enough. Me and Alex are going to go ahead
Yeah,
and get out of here because, to be perfectly honest, I need to get back to drawing comics. It takes freaking forever and only so much time in the day to get it done.
it
All
sure
right, you guys,
does.
it's Comic Books from Coast to Coast. I'm Joe Leonardo, hanging out with Alexander Turbin. We are digging on Wally Wood, and we are digging on the amazing Al Williamson. Please come by and cast your vote. The 50, 60 dudes that come by and watch the show, you are all our very best friends. We love you guys. Please leave a comment so we know who you are. And the guys that are watching, so we can begin to mention you by name and talk about your art and stuff like that, because I'm willing to bet nearly all of the dudes that watch our show are probably artists too. And we would love to, have a chance to talk to you guys about your art and show your art off. Once again, just to get it in your brain, this is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. Please leave a like for Alex and continue to watch the show. And just like Alex always says, it's time for us to get out of here because we got to keep on creating.
Thanks for watching.